Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing. Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing 1 2 3 4 5.
The hour of convening having arrived, all members of the House will please take your seats. All members of this House will please report to the floor of the House and take seats. The clerk will ring the bell. All members of the House will please take your seats. We're about to have the morning roll call. We're going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Well, good morning. Welcome to day 28. Going to have a good day. Going to be raining outside and cloudy. In here, the sun will be shining. Or at least the lights will be on, we hope. We're going to begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 110th House District, Chairman Andy Welch. Chairman Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone, and blessings to you. It is my pleasure today to introduce the chaplain of the day, Reverend Dr. Edward W. Lee, and his lovely wife, who's sitting with us today, First Lady Betty Lee. For over 4 decades, Reverend Lee and his wife have pastored and shepherded the Shiloh Baptist Church in McDonough, Georgia. During that time, they have expanded Shiloh both in a physical sense and a spiritual sense. As a result of God's blessings and his leadership, Shiloh has outgrown its historic 350-person sanctuary to grow into one that hosts over 1,100 souls each service on Sundays. Like his congregation, Reverend Lee is active in our community. He's an inspiring leader, and he is a wonderful servant of Jesus Christ. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Dr. Reverend Lee.
Good morning. How is everybody doing on crossover day? A lot has to happen here, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of your way. Let's give Representative Welch another hand clap. Come on, can we do that? All right. All righty. Today I want to talk about serving others through true humility. And I'm going to refer to some verses, but when you get home, the thought sort of emanates from Paul's letter to the Philippians, chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. But I want to thank the Speaker of the House, Honorable David Ralston, for his warm reception and hospitality shown toward me and my wife Betty. I continue to thank God for Representative Andy Welch's friendship over the years and for inviting me to serve as your chaplain of the day. His leadership benefits Henry County each and every day. I want to thank each of you for your courage to serve the citizens of Georgia, seeking multiple ways to meet the needs of a growing diversity population. And I will continue to pray for you daily as you continue in this 2018 session. The words of Bob Dylan's classic ballad of the 60s seem to speak with pristine clarity some 50 years later. The times they are a-changing. We have witnessed disruptive technologies shake business models, natural disasters rock cities and regions, and financial upheavals level to the ground both businesses and ordinary families. Much has happened at this dawn of the 21st century. Indeed, the times are a-changing. Society has changed, and there is no going back. This change presents tremendous opportunity, but it also breathes new life into the most destructive elements of our past. The shift is taking place economically and technologically and educationally and politically and socially and religiously. These shifts are tearing at the very fabric of our society and our culture. They are leaving gaping holes through which many are and will fall in without the aid of a safety net. And I thank God for you being part of that safety net for the state of Georgia. E.B. Du Bois said that the issue of race was the central issue of the 20th century. Yet, at the close of the 20th century, that issue was not settled, and now in the 21st century, we see it at the root of much of what guides the policy and direction for our nation. I think all of us have to be aware that every now and then in life, there are just some things we ought to settle, some things that we ought to put in the past. All of us matters. Everyone matters. So Paul, in our text, communicated the motivation for unifying against the things that would divide us. In other words, against whatever we would define as the enemy. God granted the faith necessary to become Christ-exalting citizens, and God granted the privilege of suffering for the sake of Christ. Exalting Christ in everything eliminates the need to fuss about anything. Listen to God's encouragement and listen to his consolation. In that second chapter, it says that therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort in love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, that's that first verse. It said this is what Paul is trying to motivate the church at Philippi. Then Paul emphasized four realities concerning our relationship with Christ, motivating exhausting behavior toward each other. And I see these are privilege of citizenship in the kingdom of God. So what he's basically saying here is that if there is any encouragement in Christ, in our faith, or whomever it is that you might worship as your ultimate being, if there's any encouragement in Christ, and there certainly is, and if there's any constellation of love, and there most certainly is, if there's any affection and compassion, and there most certainly is, if there's any fellowship of the Spirit, and there most certainly is, then he says, then here comes the mandate. Paul is motivating, he's motivating working together in harmony and in unity with a humble spirit by motivating us about what we all have benefited in Christ. Then, after the motivation, then comes the mandate. He says in that second verse, he says, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being on one accord of one mind. Paul encouraged them to make his day by emulating God's love toward each other through their humility. And I know you all work it every day. You got a mindset in this place to work together because you have a lot of the same experiences in our culture, in our study of the Word of God, in our peers and all that we experience in community. Paul, how might I serve with humility? Then he says, and they said, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself, and let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. Nobody is in this for themselves. We're in this for one another. Then what is a view then of true humility? In verse 5, it tells us that let this mind be in you which was also in Christ Jesus. Let that mind, let it come forth. He says that who being in the form of God did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. So if we want an example of true humility, we need to look at Jesus Christ and his mind and the contribution that he has made. He emptied himself of his deity for a moment that he might come down through incarnation and be with us. He humbled himself. He was obedient not only to death, but to the death on that old rugged cross. So he exhibited perfect unity with the Father. He demonstrated perfect love. He embraced one purpose with the Father. He showed no trace of selfish ambition or conceit. He humbly considered the Father's agenda and our needs more important than his own. Well, Reverend Lee, if that's true, then what is the results of true humility? We find that in verses 9 through 11, and what he pretty much says that after Jesus displayed true humility in his task on earth, it says then that the Father bestowed on him the name which is above every name. So if we work together on earth, you know, we don't have to try to make that name every day. We just need to cooperate with one another, be humble. And when we succeed, then there's someone above us that will raise us up. He said, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, of those in heaven and on earth and under the earth. Then, he says, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So that is my plea today, is that all of us will work together in this setting, in all settings, in community settings, in church settings, in a way that we are not there just for ourselves, but in due time we serve a Savior that will raise us and exalt us to places that we never dreamed, giving us a name of integrity, of honesty, and truth, so that all of us throughout this state will know that we are working together for the best of each and every one of us. Let us bow our heads in prayer. God, our Father, we just want to thank you once again for this day. We want to thank you for this time together. We want to thank you for every man and woman in this room. And we just want to remind them that if we could sort of use the example of Christ and how he operated in the world as a way that we operate with one another, then we can become humble to the point that we not only look out for ourselves and what we need, but that we also look out for what others need, investing in their interests as we continue to go forth. We ask you to bless this assembly with all the work they've got to do just on this day as they work to continue to make life better for all of us here in the state of Georgia. We ask this in your name. Let every heart say amen. Clean off your desk. All righty, so I appreciate the opportunity to share it, and I certainly continue to wish this one of the greatest sessions that you ever have. Thank you very much. And that you get a whole lot done. All right. Keep us in your prayers. I will. Let's get a picture. Okay, down here? Yeah, she'll show you. Right here?
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. The chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has reviewed the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct.
Chairman Taylor, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, on our 59th, moves the following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Report of standing committees. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1010 by Representative Cantrell, the 22nd, Caldwell, the 20th, Ballinger, the 23rd, Turner, the 21st, and Carson, the 46th. Bill being titled an act to amend an act placing the sheriff, clerk, of the Superior Court, tax commissioner, and judge of the probate court of Cherokee County on the salary system.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1011 by Representative Gassaway, the 28th. Bill being titled an act to amend an act to provide for a new charter for the town of Martin.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1012 by Representative Hogan of the 179th, Kelly the 16th, Tankersley the 160th, Stevens the 164th, Hill the 3rd, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to miscellaneous local administrative provisions regarding ad valorem taxation.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 1013 by Representative Wallace of the 119th, Holcomb of the 81st, Wen of the 89th, Oliver of the 82nd, Fry of the 118th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 1014 by Representative Coomer, the 14th. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 33-34-3, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to requirements for the issuance of policies.
Insurance.
House Resolution 1347 by Representative Gassaway, the 28th. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. J. Marion Thomason and dedicating a road in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1348 by Representative Stevens, the 164th, Hitchens, the 161st, Stevens, the 165th, Petrie, the 166th, and Burns, the 159th. A resolution honoring Senator Edward H. Zipperer and dedicating a bridge in his honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1349 by Representative Werkheiser, the 157th, Nimmer, the 178th, Smith, the 70th, Nix, the 69th, Gillian of the 24th. Resolution creating the House Study Committee on Solid Waste Disposal Process.
Special rules.
House Resolution 1363 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, Peak of the 141st, Jones, the 91st, Silcox, the 52nd, Meadows of the 5th. A resolution urging the United States Congress to amend the Controlled Substances Act of 1970.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 1364 by Representative Dempsey, the 13th, Cooper, the 43rd, Newton of the 123rd, Tankersley, the 160th, Jackson, the 128th. A resolution encouraging the Georgia legislature to broaden eligibility and increase funding for the breast and cervical cancer prevention program.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 1372 by Representative Morris, the 156th, Earhart of the 36th, Meadows of the 5th, Holcomb of the 81st, and Clark of the 98th. A resolution honoring the life of Staff Sergeant Dustin Michael Wright and dedicating a road in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1373 by Representative Morris, the 156th, Nimmer, the 178th, Burns, the 159th, and Shaw, the 176th. A resolution recognizing Mr. Roy E. Harrington and dedicating a road in his honor.
Transportation.
Senate Bill 82 by Senator Jackson II, Harbison of the 15th, Davenport of the 44th. Bill entitled an act to amend Part 7 of Article 7 of Chapter 3 of Title 20, Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to Hope Scholarships and Grants.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 293 by Senator Black of the 8th, Hill of the 4th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, Red of the 33rd, and Anderson of the 43rd. The bill being titled an act to amend Article 7, Chapter 3, Title 47, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to retirement allowances.
Retirement.
Senate Bill 294 by Senator Black of the 8th, Hill of the 4th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, Red of the 33rd, and Anderson of the 43rd. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 7, Chapter 2, of Title 47, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to retirement allowances.
Retirement.
Senate Bill 309 by Senator McCoon of the 29th, Mullis of the 53rd, Albers of the 56th, Gooch of the 51st, Miller of the 49th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to primaries and elections generally.
Governmental Affairs.
Senate Bill 324 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Beach of the 21st, Thompson of the 14th, Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 32-4-112, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to contracts with state agencies.
Transportation.
Senate Bill 325 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Huffstetler of the 52nd, Burke of the 11th, Watson the 1st, Tillery the 19th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section Chapter 34, Title 43, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to physicians, assistants, and others.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 334 by Senators Unnerman of the 45th, Miller of the 49th, Schaefer of the 48th. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 26, Title 43, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to nurses.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 337 by Senator Unnerman of the 45th, Miller of the 49th, Tillery the 19th. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 2, Chapter 8, Title 24, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to admissions and confessions.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 339 by Senator Ligon of the 3rd, Schaefer of the 48th, McCoon of the 29th, Tippins of the 37th, Miller of the 49th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 2, Chapter 3, Title 20, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Board of Regents and the university system.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 350 by Senator Walker of the 20th, Jones of the 25th, Schaefer of the 48th, Harbinson of the 15th, Martin of the 9th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 33-39-5, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to transactions requiring notice of information practices.
Insurance.
Senate Bill 355 by Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd, Miller of the 40th, Tippins of the 37th, Kirk of the 13th, Parent of the 42nd, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Code Section 46-2-25, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to procedure for changing any rate, charge, or classification.
Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
Senate Bill 376 by Senator Schaefer of the 48th, Kirk of the 13th, Albers the 56th, Thompson of the 14th, Heath of the 31st, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 34, Chapter 1, and Title 10 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to identity theft.
Banks and Banking.
Senate Bill 395 by Senator Watson of the 1st, Harbison of the 15th, Walker of the 20th, Black of the 8th, Jones of the 22nd, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 10 of Chapter 7 and Title 50, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Defense Community Economic Development Fund.
Economic Development and Tourism.
Senate Bill 406 by Senator Strickland of the 17th, Walker of the 20th, Stone of the 23rd, Miller of the 49th, Martin of the 9th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to health.
Human Relations and Aging.
Senate Bill 407 by Senator Strickland of the 17th, Walker of the 20th, Stone of the 23rd, Miller of the 49th, Martin of the 9th, and others. Bill be titled Act to provide for comprehensive reform for offenders.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
Senate Bill 409 by Senator Harper the 7th, Albers the 56th, Mullis the 53rd, Jones the 25th, Gooch the 51st, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 6 and Title 40, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to negotiating railroad crossings and entering highways from private driveways.
Motor Vehicles.
Senate Bill 422 by Senator Unnerman of the 45th, Walker the 20th, Orrock of the 36th. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 22 of Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to clinical laboratories.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 432 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, Dugan of the 30th, Hill of the 4th, Ligon of the 3rd, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 7 and Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition rate, computation, and exemptions from state income tax.
Ways and Means.
Senate Bill 434 by Senator Unnerman of the 45th, Burke of the 11th, Schaefer of the 48th, Kirk of the 13th. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 10 of 549 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to Georgia Board for Physician Workforce.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 443 by Senator Stone of the 23rd. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7 and Title 44 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to security deposits.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 445 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, Beach of the 21st, Miller of the 49th, Ginn of the 47th, Dugan of the 30th. Bill be titled Act to amend Title 32 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to highways, bridges, and ferries.
Transportation.
Senate Bill 446 by Senator Harper the 7th and Mullis the 53rd. Bill being titled Act to amend Chapter 11 of Title 40, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to abandoned motor vehicles.
Motor Vehicles.
Senate Bill 452 by Senator Stone, the 23rd, Anderson, the 24th, Mullis, the 53rd, Albers, the 56th, Heath, the 31st, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 17 and Title 42, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to criminal procedure and penal institutions.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
Senate Bill 458 by Senators Wilkinson of the 50th, Gooch of the 51st, Ginn of the 47th, Brass of the 28th, and Mullis of the 53rd. Bill being entitled an act to amend Article 1, Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regard ad valorem taxation of property.
Ways and Means.
Senate Resolution 745 by Senator Miller of the 40th, Schaefer of the 48th, Henson of the 41st, Honorman of the 45th. Resolution recognizing Robert H. Bob Bell and dedicating interchanges in his honor.
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 774 by Senator Stone of the 23rd, Mullis of the 53rd, Miller of the 49th, Cowser of the 46th, Gooch of the 51st, and others. A resolution creating the Joint Study Committee on Adoption Expenses.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
Senate Resolution 794 by Senator Miller of the 49th, Gooch of the 51st, Wilkinson of the 50th, Ginn of the 47th, Honorman of the 45th, and others. A resolution creating the joint Georgia, North Carolina, and Georgia-Tennessee Boundary Line Commission.
Interstate Cooperation.
Senate Resolution 821 by Senator Martin of the 9th, Jackson of the 2nd, Watson of the 1st, Jones of the 22nd, Dugan of the 30th. A resolution recognizing Augusta as an official cybersecurity and information technology innovation corridor in Savannah.
Economic Development and Tourism.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1003 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, the bill to amend an act providing the method of election of members of the Board of Education of Gilmer County. House Bill 1004 by Representative Jones of the 91st, a bill relating to limitation on annexation of areas furnished services or included in comprehensive zoning plan by certain counties. House Bill 1005 by Representative Gonzalez of the 117th, a bill relating to general provisions for torts. House Bill 1009 by Representative Gertler of the 8th, a bill relating to local government. House Resolution 1319 by Representative Gonzalez of the 117th, resolution creating the House Study Committee on expanding Georgia law prohibiting discriminatory wage practices based on sex to include discriminatory wage practices based on race. House Resolution 1320 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, resolution creating the House Study Committee on Georgia Public Schools calendar. House Resolution 1321 by Representative Cox of the 108th, the resolution creating the House Study Committee on high-risk exposure to HIV and hepatitis B and C. House Resolution 1342 by Representative Bentley of the 139th, resolution recognizing Representative Linmore James and dedicating a road in his honor. House Resolution 1343 by Representative Earhart of the 36th, resolution creating the Joint Study Committee on State Tuition Assistance for Independent College Students. Senate Bill 74 by Senator McCoon of the 29th, a bill relating to the conduct of a hearing for the petition of an unemancipated minor seeking a waiver for parental notification requirement for an abortion and appeal. Senate Bill 363 by Senator Brass of the 28th, the bill relating to elections and primaries. Senate Bill 373 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, the bill relating to the number of judges of superior courts. Senate Bill 375 by Senator Ligon Jr. of the 3rd, a bill relating to children and youth services. Senate Bill 377 by Senator Strickland of the 17th, the bill relating to State Workforce Development Board. Senate Bill 397 by Senator Watson of the 1st, a bill relating to acquisition and disposition of real and personal property. Senate Bill 402 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, the bill to enact the Achieving Connectivity Everywhere Act. Senate Bill 405 by Senator Miller of the 40th, the bill relating to the Georgia Student Finance Authority. Senate Bill 427 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th, a bill relating to child support and final verdict or decree, guidelines for determining amount of reward, continuation of duty to provide support, and duration of support through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Reiners, the 152nd District Chairman on the Committee on Governmental Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Governmental Affairs has had under consideration the following bills of the House. Has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1008 do pass. House Bill 848 do pass by substitute. House Bill 995 do pass by substitute. House Bill 996 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Reiners from the 152nd District, Chairman. Representative Reiners from the 152nd District, Chairman of the Committee on Governmental Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Governmental Affairs has had under consideration the following bills of the House. It has instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 644 do pass by substitute. Representative Golick of the 40th District, Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil has had under consideration the following bills of the House. And instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 999 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Golick of the 40th District, Chairman. Representative Ballinger, the 23rd District, Chairman of the Committee on Juvenile Justice, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Juvenile Justice has had under its consideration the following bills and resolution of the House. It's instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 972 do pass by substitute. House Resolution 1260 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Ballinger, the 23rd District, Chairman. Representative Alan Powell, the 32nd District, Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following bills of the House. It is instructed me to report back same to the House to the following recommendations. House Bill 978 do pass. House Bill 992 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Alan Powell, 32nd District, Chairman. Representative Maxwell, the 17th District, Chairman of the Committee on Regulated Industries, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Regulated Industries has had under consideration the following bills of the House. It instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 653 do pass. House Bill 977 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Maxwell, the 17th District, Chairman. Representative Gerald Green of the 151st District, Chairman of the Committee on State Properties, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on State Properties has had under consideration the following bills of the Senate and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 356 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Gerald Green of the 151st District, Chairman. House Bill 878.
House is... We're moving on to morning orders. There are 13 members signed up. The chair will limit members to 1 minute. 1 minute for morning orders. The chair recognizes Representative Raffensperger for a morning order. The gentleman will suspend. The chair will take up a reconsideration motion prior to morning orders. On Monday, February 26th, the House failed to pass House Bill 876. The gentleman from the 147th served notice of a motion to reconsider the action of the House in failing to give House Bill 878 the requisite majority. Now is the time for the gentleman to pursue the motion if he so desires. Chair recognizes Representative Clark.
I move that the House reconsider its action in failing to give the requisite constitutional majority to House Bill 878.
On the gentleman's motion that the House reconsider its action failing to give House Bill 878 a requisite majority, all those in favor of reconsideration will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the yeas are 161, the nays are 3. The House has reconsidered its action. The chair will now recognize Representative Raffensperger for a morning order.
Morning, Madam Speaker. This morning we're recognizing and honoring our military chaplains. They've been over in the Senate side. I believe they're up there right now, but we'd like to honor them for serving our nation and members of the armed forces. They serve in combat and in peacetime. They provide our armed forces a shoulder to lean on. And it's tremendous what they do for us. Thank you so much for your service.
Members who have a morning order, please come to the front. The chair recognizes Chairman Nix for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll try to speak quickly. Today, February 28th, is the inaugural after-school day at the Capitol. It's hosted by the Georgia Statewide After-School Network and highlights the great work that they do in our schools to prepare our youth for success in college, career, and life. Research shows that high-quality after-school programs can increase school attendance, improve behavior, and raise student achievement. After-school programs support working families and build stronger communities. Despite the fact that they do all these good things, all of Georgia students don't have access to this high-quality after-school programs. 18% of Georgia's children are alone and unsupervised between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. And of course, this is the time that juvenile crime occurs, experimentation with drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, and sex. And for every one child in an after-school program in Georgia, 2 are waiting to get in. So I hope you will take a minute today and meet with your after-school providers. Tables are set up in the south wing of the Capitol until 11:30 this morning, so please try to stop by and see these people who do such a great work for us in our communities and our schools. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Coach Williams for a morning order.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't think the group is in here yet, but the National Council of Negro Women are here today from the Decatur chapter and also Rockdale chapter. They will be here later. They're wearing black. So you get a chance, go by. They're in room 307 at this time, though. So thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tom Taylor for a morning order. And
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm
Representatives
joined by
Holcomb
my
and
friends,
Brockway.
Thank you very much. Today is Bosnian American Day at the Georgia Capitol, and they'll be presenting from 1 to 3 down in the rotunda. The darkest ghosts of the past could stretch into the shadows of the present. They certainly do in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Beautiful country, laced with clear rivers, Alps. It's widely viewed as a bullet bunker, though. March 1st marks our independence from the former Yugoslavia. In Georgia, we have over 10,000 Bosnian Americans. They are doctors, attorneys, white-collar workers, students, and much more. They cherish the freedom the United States has given them to start their lives all over again. Today, they're with us in the rotunda commemorating and celebrating the 4th annual Bosnian American Day at the Capitol. I would like to invite you to join us at 1 p.m. in the rotunda and welcome them here. And I will say, a lot of you know my admin assistant, Zaneta Vigdulik. She is a refugee from Bosnia. Her father was killed in the conflict, and I'd like to turn it over to my friend Scott Holcomb, who served there in combat, to just give you an overview of that.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Dobar Dan. I had the pleasure of serving in Bosnia and spent time in Brčko, Sarajevo, Tuzla, and Srebrenica. I know many from Bosnia went through incredible hardship to make it here to Georgia. We are glad that you are here, and we welcome you to your state capital. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll yield the will.
Chair recognizes Representative Shannon for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today is the last day of Black History Month, so here's a moment in Black history. John Brown's Raid, October 16, 1859. A native of Connecticut, John Brown struggled to support his large family and moved restlessly from state to state throughout his life, becoming a passionate opponent of slavery along the way. After assisting in the Underground Railroad out of Missouri and engaging in a bloody struggle between pro and anti-slavery forces in Kansas in the 1850s, Brown grew anxious to strike a more extreme blow for the cause. On the night of October 16, 1859, he led a small band of less than 50 men in a raid against a federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Their aim was to capture enough ammunition to lead a large operation against Virginia slaveholders. Brown's men, including several blacks, captured and held the arsenal until federal and state governments sent troops and were able to overpower them. He became an avid speaker against slavery, and his violent actions convinced slave owners in the South beyond doubt that abolitionists would go to any lengths to destroy the peculiar institution. This is a moment in Black history.
The House is going to recognize the Doctor of the Day. Today, Representative Barr is hosting the Doctor of the Day.
Good morning, y'all. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Dr. DeLaw. Of course, I could go on about his education, but more importantly, the highest praise I could give someone is that he loves his family. And this man loves his family and is deeply involved in his community. I'll list off a couple of things that he does for us. He serves as the team physicians for the Duluth and Central Gwinnett High Schools and a sideline physician for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and kickoff game. He also serves as a hand surgeon for the Atlanta Gladiators professional hockey team. He is a specialist in the hand, so toward the end of the afternoon, if your fingers are getting a little bit tired from voting, go down and see him. He'll be here to take care of us. Thank you, Dr. DeLaw.
Thank you, Chairman Barr and Pro Temp Jones. It is my deep, heartfelt pleasure to be Doctor of the Day. I've done this for 6 years in a row, and it doesn't get old at all. I love it every time. So I look forward to doing this year after year. I want to thank everyone for their dedicated service. We'll be thinking about you when I'm at home around 10 o'clock, putting my family to bed, and you guys are going to be working hard here, I understand. And so I'll be thinking about you. And you have a great day, and thank you for your service. And I want to let you know that we are dedicated to improving the lives of our Georgians and their health care. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Bazemore for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Today is Small Business Owners Day here at the Capitol, and I would like for those that are in the gallery that have come to be recognized, please stand, and you all please recognize the business owners. And I have to take a moment to let you know that one of those business owners happens to be my cousin, Michael Glover, who owns Nancy's Pizza on Ponce de Leon. I'm sure you all know who that is. So please come to room 125 at 12 o'clock for some Chicago pizza, some chicken, and some salad. Thank you. And Jackie D is in the gallery also. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Representative Belton for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If all the military folks can come up here and join me. On your desk is a very important letter from the Secretary of the Navy and the Secretary of the Army and the Secretary of the Air Force. It's a letter to you, the leaders of the state, regarding quality schools and reciprocity of professional licensures. And because Representative Al Williams was a leader in this, I'm going to let him talk to the letter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Military installations are a $25 billion addition to the economy of Georgia. That puts it right up in number 3 or 4. And then last week at the governor's conference, when these 3 secretaries came forth, they mentioned one thing, and that was reciprocity for licensure. We have been ahead of the curve. We've been doing it in Georgia for a while. Other states have to play catch up. This is vital to us under BRAC. Let me thank the members of the Military Study Committee that have worked hard, and through their support and the support of those of you in this House, we are ahead of the game, and we look good because we're already doing it. Thank you so much. With that, we'll release the rail.
Chair recognizes Representative Doreen Carter for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On the dawn of Black History Month and the eve of Women's History, I would like to share with you a moment about Miss Maggie Lena Walker. Maggie Lena Walker, a descendant of slaves, was an African-American entrepreneur and civil leader who broke traditional gender and discriminatory laws by becoming the first woman, white or black, to charter and become the president of a bank in the United States. The St. Luke Penny Savings Bank in Richmond. As of 2010, and she died in 1934, the bank was still in existence under the Consolidated Bank and Trust, and it was the oldest African American bank in the United States. Thank you for this moment in history.
Chair recognizes Representatives Clark and Marin for a morning order.
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning. It's the Boy Scouts Day of America here at the Capitol. It's one of the largest youth organizations in the United States with more than 2.4 million youth participants and nearly 1 million adult volunteers. The Boy Scouts of America was founded in 1910, and since then, more than 110 million Americans have been participating in the Boy Scouts of America programs at one time or another. And their goal is to train youth in the responsible citizenship, character development, and self-reliance through participation in a wide range of outdoor activities, educational programs, and at an older age levels, career-oriented programs in partnership with the community organizations. If all the volunteers and Boy Scouts could please stand up so that the House can recognize you. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Harden for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I want to introduce a few folks to you this morning, but first of all, I want to tell you the Cordell Crisp County Fish Fry team is in town today. Tonight at the depot, they'll have some good fried fish, hush puppies, and all the trimmings ready. In the case we do get an opportunity to have a break for dinner, so want all of you to look forward to that. But let me introduce the people that are bringing this to you that are in the gallery today. We've got representatives from the Crisp County Power Commission, from the Crisp County Board of Commissioners, from the Cordell City Commission, and also from the, excuse me, don't want to leave anybody out here, the Crisp Cooking team. And these are the folks standing up. Y'all give them a good welcome because they're going to be working for us today. Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Chair recognizes Representative Bruce for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we're on the final days of Black History Month, and I want to invite everyone to an exhibit in room 216. It's original documents signed by Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, two of the people that we always recognize during this month and throughout the year. So if you get a chance, go to room 216 to see those original documents. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Majority Whip, Representative Coomer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's my honor and pleasure to invite for you to recognize the youth leadership, Bartow County Youth Leadership Group here today. Would y'all stand up and let us recognize you? Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Brockway for a morning order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the 1990s, North and South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and Tennessee all adopted guaranteed protections for crime victims into their state constitution. This year, the Kentucky legislature passed Marcy's Law, which will be on their November 2018 ballot to give crime victims there constitutional protections. That would leave Georgia as the only state in the South without constitutional protections for crime victims if we cannot pass Marcy's Law through the House this year. Ronald Reagan once said, "Far too long the victims of crime have been the forgotten persons in our criminal justice system," and I agree. This issue is not a matter of right or left. It is an issue of right or wrong, and Georgia should join our neighboring states and give equal constitutional protections to victims of crime. I urge you to support Senate Resolution 146 when it comes to the House for a vote this session. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Nimmer for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers, and ladies and gentlemen of the House, if I could capture your attention for just a minute. Chairman Nix and Chair Lady Dempsey were up here just a moment ago giving some remarks about after-school awareness and care for our children. If you recall, just a couple of weeks ago, I came up here and talked to you about a silent killer in our youth between the ages of 12 and 18 in the area of binge drinking. Today, I want to give you just a couple of things to think about in the area of our youth and their after-school activities. The average American youth younger than the age of 18 will observe and watch and partake in 200,000 acts of violence on television. 50 to 60% of this will happen unsupervised. These children then go on to take out those forms of aggression that are given to them through a mental absorption from television. 97% of our American youth between 12 and 18 participate in playing video games. Now, please listen to me when I tell you this. 90% of those games contain violence. 6 to 8% of those children will either kill themselves or kill someone else. In Hollywood, 91% of their movies contain violence, and over the past decade, violence in PG-13 movies have tripled. In the area that Chairman Nix and Chair Lady Dempsey were referencing, I would encourage us, while we cannot legislate the home, please do your job as a public servant and make sure you make public servant announcements to your constituents about the dangers of unsupervised children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We are honored to have this morning visiting with us on the floor of the House the newly appointed regional administrator for the Small Business Administration for the Southeast region, the Honorable Ashley Bell. Administrator Bell, good to have you with us. Chair recognizes Representative Beasley Teague for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, my colleagues. Today I'm doing my Black History reflection. And I want to talk to you about the Primitive Baptist Church that I grew up in. My great-great-grandmother was a slave. And they organized their church in the 1800s. And I remember in that church growing up as a child with my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my mother, and they would walk around the church, I guess something like I do in here sometimes. And when they thought you had a question, they would look over and they'd come and they'd say, "Baby, is there anything I can do for you?" Well, I knew I hadn't said nothing, so I started smiling. And they would tell us, give us Bible verses and things like this to repeat, and before they would leave. And that would actually make me feel better when I start repeating the Bible verse. Because no matter where you go, the Bible verse will help you get through whatever you're going through. That's what I learned. Does this light mean I'm over? Stop. Help me, Mr. Speaker. Okay, so then the usher board would stand at the door and greet you. That's why I love the doorkeepers, because they look out for us as we come in, they greet us, and they also contribute to how our day goes. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that helps make the day go by, even in the chamber here, because it gives me the reflection of our Primitive Baptist Church, except we talk a little more than we did back then. I mean, we know we didn't talk like this in church, so we wouldn't We wouldn't. We wouldn't do that. But I'm thankful because in doing that, we have learned to handle situations right here on a daily basis, and it helps me keep my balance because back then I was kind of, and it's easy to get caught up in something. And fortunately enough, the foundations that the slaves put together are still resting well in my veins. Thank you and have a good day.
We are going on to the rules calendar. Going on to the rules calendar, we will be taking up the local calendar either later this morning or early in the afternoon. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 951.
House Bill 951 by Representative Shaw, 176 and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to education so as to establish a Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation. This bill I refer to the Committee on Small Business Development. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Shaw to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Good morning. Bear with me on my voice a little bit. For those of you in the rural caucus, you've heard me talk for a couple of years about the need to set up some type of rural center to help us focus on rural issues. You could call it a think tank or whatever, but just a policy center. So we've looked at what other states are doing, primarily Pennsylvania, and come up with a plan that this has been talked about widely during our House Rural Development Council all year as well, so this is coming out of the council. But House Bill 951 would set up what we've been talking about, the Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation. It would be housed in in the university system at one of the schools that has a rural bachelor's program, and we would also use that to coordinate with all of our other resources that are out there. Quite frankly, we don't have an issue with not having enough resources to help our rural communities. We just need to have more of an outcome-based approach rather than an agency-driven approach, if you will. This center would be able to really hone into these issues that are, many of them are very difficult, and also be able to go out into the state and work with communities individually where you have a pilot projects or whatnot. I mean, we've even seen what Pennsylvania's done on issues such as heroin epidemic in the rural areas. They use their rural center to focus in and to coordinate all these resources. So this Center for Rural Prosperity would be able to do just that, and they would be able to work with our existing Department of Economic Development. We're also asking in here for the Department of Economic Development to put someone in charge of rural Georgia through the development, through economic development, a deputy commissioner for rural Georgia, someone that can get out and about in the communities that need that help so desperately, that need the jobs. We've talked about it in the Rural Council. Everybody understands it. The growth that we've seen in this state is amazing, but it has not touched our rural communities. They are suffering and struggling, and this is a way for us to set up a center to help these communities. We would also like to see integration with the Department of Agriculture, with the Georgia Grown program that's so successful, to let that department beef it up some, to get out and support agribusinesses, to be reactive and proactive, and to work. All of these working together, Department of Economic Development, Rural Deputy Commissioner for Rural Georgia, the Rural Center for Prosperity, and the Georgia Grown Program. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the bill. I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Frazier to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Shaw, is it not true that I represent, does the gentleman yield first?
Yes, for you, anytime.
Is it not true that I represent rural Georgia, and this Rural Prosperity Innovation Center would definitely benefit my Burke County area and also Augusta, Richmond County, because now we will finally have a catalyst where we can come to take care of all of our needs as it relates to economic development, farming, and our rural hospitals.
I completely agree with you, Representative.
Thank you.
I think it would do just that.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 951 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 951. The ayes are 167, the nays are 3. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 973.
House Bill 973 by Representative Jones, the 47th. Be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to ethics in government so as to provide that lobbyists shall acknowledge receiving, reading, and agreeing to abide by the sexual harassment policy of the General Assembly. This bill having referred to the Committee on Rules. The committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes the Speaker Pro Tem of this House, Representative Jones, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 973 addresses a gap in current law between a gap in the newly adopted sexual harassment policy that pertains to the Georgia General Assembly. This bill was a result of a subcommittee that was appointed by Speaker Ralston of the Legislative Services Committee, and that subcommittee recommended and the Legislative Services Committee adopted unanimously a new sexual harassment policy for the Georgia General Assembly. What the bill does simply is it allows the Ethics Commission to provide a copy of that policy to registered lobbyists each year, and it requires that registered lobbyists sign an acknowledgement that they received, understand, and will comply with that sexual harassment policy. That policy will also be made available to the public in the Fiscal Affairs Office. That will also be required of members of the legislature. That is not contained in this bill. And finally, it allows the Ethics Commission to accept recommendations of the Legislative Services Committee for sanctions on registered lobbyists and allows them to provide for those sanctions for registered lobbyists. That's what the bill does, and I'd be happy to take questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 973 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 973, the ayes are 171, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 986.
House Bill 986 by Representative Nimmer of the 178th and others to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for the governing authority of each county comprising the Waycross Judicial Circuit may supplement the compensation, salary, expenses, and allowances of each of the judges of the Superior Courts of the Waycross Judicial Circuit. This bill I'm referred to the Committee on Judiciary. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Nimmer to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring before you for your consideration House Bill 986. This bill is specific to the Waycross Judicial Circuit. The 6 counties that make that circuit up have all the support of the delegation out of this chamber. Each county commission represented in that circuit signed letters of support for this stipend increase. And Mr. Speaker, with that, I will take any questions if there are any.
You have a question.
I'll yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Laricchia to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Sure.
Is it not true that I attend church with the chief judge in that judicial circuit?
If the gentleman knows what he speaks,
You
yeah.
further yield?
Sure.
And if you don't get this passed, I'm not going to be able to eat my breakfast between Sunday school and church if I don't come home and tell him you passed this bill.
You may have just killed my bill, Representative. Mr. Speaker, with that, if there are no other questions, I would ask this House's favorable consideration on this local issue. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 986 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 986. The ayes are 168, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 410.
House Bill 410. By Representative Powell of the 32nd to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 44 of the Code of Georgia annotated relating the regulation of specialized land transactions so as to provide for a limit on certain fees imposed on purchasers of condominiums and lots in a property owners association. This bill having referred to Committee on Judiciary. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. This morning I bring to you House Bill 410. 410's been bounced around for a couple of years now. It's been over in the Judiciary Committee. And I usually tell folks you can either do a simple bill, but sometimes you get one that gets a little bit more long-winded, and I'm going to try to give you the background on this so you'll understand where this bill comes from. In 1975, the legislature that day passed a $10 cap on HOAs, homeowner associations, that provide a letter of accounts or a statement of accounts. This is normally used in some cases at the closing of real estate transactions to see and to be sure that whatever that property is, to see if they in fact owe any money to the homeowners association. Fast forward to about 30 years and the practice has changed. Homeowners associations aren't the only ones. They've contracted out to homeowner and management companies and folks like this. And what happened was that when the real estate downturn happened, the mortgage lenders and those companies that do that type of business, they started asking for other information. Now granted, a lot of the information that's being asked for is still a statement of accounts, a very simple procedure of just saying what is owed to that association at the closing. But what happened at that point, a lot of these management companies and some of the homeowner associations started using this as a revenue generator. They started funding or they started charging exorbitant fees. And a lot of those fees never showed up until the time of the closing. And I can assure you that if you want to squirrel a deal, then you go to a closing and then all of a sudden there's another bill that's sitting there for $400, $500, $600 for information that really wasn't asked for. Things like issuance of an insurance letter, or how much of a reserve account, or the actual homeowner docs, and this type of information. Well, we've got some of the companies that have used this as a rationale to charge these fees. So what you had was you've got these companies that, and I'm not the Attorney General and I'm not a district attorney, but it appears to me to be that there's been some strict violations and a large degree of folks that are charging these type of fees. So this bill was dropped in last year. I was asked at a certain point, would I take over the bill for another House member, by virtue of me being a real estate broker. I know it wasn't because I'm considered so blasted smart. But I can tell you that this is a system, this is a process that has gone awry. That we've got out-of-state firms and they'll contract with the homeowner associations, and then all of a sudden the homeowner associations get kickbacks on this type of information. Quite honestly, as an owner of a condo or a piece of property that's being held by these folks, they ought to be providing that information as a matter of good faith and courtesy to the owners of that property. Then we get into the process. This bill was assigned to the Judiciary Committee. Now, quite frankly, I believe I had just as soon go to about any committee in this House than Judiciary. And I say that not because of the caliber and the character of the people that are there, but it's been my experience for 28 years that when you take attorneys on the committee, turn the non-attorneys into attorneys, and then they're all asking questions, and they all got a better idea. Now, personally, I thank Chairman Willard, and I thank the members of the committee for dealing with this issue. And it's been a thorny issue. And if you don't believe it, you've probably already been touched by some of the lobbyists that's been hired by some of the out-of-state big management companies out there that are sweating bullets, that all of a sudden the cash cow might come to an end. But this bill, ladies and gentlemen, and it's not as bad as it's just because it's several pages thick. You got 3 sections on there. Section 1 deals with the condos. Section 2 deals with the property owner associations. And Section 3 deals with covenants that run with the land. And each one of those sections are identical. They just deal with different sections. And what we're saying in this, we're saying that if a management company or a homeowner association, if they're going to do this type of practice, that they are now set with a cap of $250. They can also assess an expedited fee if the closing attorney or someone waits to the last 3 days, that they can get an extra $50 for an expedited fee. And you know, while I'll hold my breath to this, this is certainly better than the abuse that a lot of the consumers and the people that are selling property come under today. I would ask your favorable consideration, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about this bill. But I would certainly appreciate your favorable consideration for no other reason to get it across the hall so we can see if they got anything that they can add to it. Mr. Speaker, I'll stand back and be glad to answer any questions. If not, I'll sit down.
You have a number of questions. Do you care to yield?
Yes, sir, I certainly will.
Chair recognizes Representative Kelly to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I certainly will.
Mr. Chairman, isn't it true that House Bill 410 initially got assigned to my subcommittee in Judiciary?
Yes, sir, it did.
And isn't it true that while you may not enjoy it, we love having you in Judiciary anytime that you come?
I know you do.
And a follow-up, if you'll yield.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that when the law was originally passed in 1975, that the letter envisioned and required at the time was much simpler, and that $10 made sense? But working with both sides of this industry, we tried to strike a balance of making sure that for closing, everyone would have the information they needed, and that people would be able to be compensated at a rate to try and justify the work that was done.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Wilkerson to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield? Back here in the back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to thank you for bringing HB 410 forward. Is it not true that some of these management companies are charging hundreds of dollars as soon as you get to the table just to give a letter that they should be able to print out pretty quickly?
Yes, sir. You're exactly right. A lot of these companies charge extra for rush research fees or research or service fees or expedited or convenience fee. I've never quite understood what a convenience fee is, except it's pretty convenient when I feel my wallet coming out of my back pocket.
Thank you. Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir.
I've also, when I logged onto my management company's website for my HOA last night, I saw this comment that saying lobbyists are pushing the limit fees and it could lead to higher fees. Is it not true that each month these boards prepare an aging report which shows how much people shows how much people owe? So it should be pretty easy to print out, and that $250 is a very reasonable fee, if not a little bit too high.
Well, my preference would be that the statement of accounts, probably $10 is still way too much, because all that takes is pushing a button on a computer. But other information, then that should probably have been scheduled out, but it's all bundled together, and if that's what their will was, then I certainly do work with the committee process, and that's how it is.
Thank you for this very good bill.
Thank you for the kind questions.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir. I'll take one or two more.
Chair recognizes one of the great bulldogs in the last few decades, Representative Douglas, to your right for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I certainly do.
I was kind of confused by reading the bill. Who's going to take on this fee? Is the seller or the buyer going to take on this fee?
There's where the problem lies, because if you show up for a closing and then you're suddenly surprised with the closing attorney saying that the the lender or the underwriter wanted certain information. Now, granted, some of them may have only wanted the bottom line of what's owed. Are they delinquent? Or the statement of accounts? Then all of a sudden they get all this other stuff. But whatever that price that shows up, I can tell you as a real estate broker that the worst thing you can have is a closing fixing to take place, and then you have a surprise that there's an extra fee that's going to be charged, and the closing attorney says, I'm not paying for it, so who's going to pay for it? And then you have the buyers and the sellers that are then at cross odds. Who's going to pay for this? Flip a coin, split it, but it's still an unnecessary part of a transaction that has become prevalent.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I certainly do.
With that discussion, you still didn't give me a quite clear of who's going to pay it. Me, myself, being a mortgage broker, I represent the buyer, and the buyer has expended all of his costs trying to get to the closing table. So I'm just trying to be clear. Is it going to put the onus on the buyer, or is the seller who's trying to sell the property going to take that fee?
And again, I will say, there is no answer. It's going to have to come, either the buyer or the seller is going to have to agree. They either split the fees or one of them is going to have to pay for it.
Thank you.
And it's an unnecessary chore when you get ready for a closing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You further yield, or you won't let somebody else have a bill today?
One more question, Mr. Speaker, because I'll be more than glad to sit down since this is going to be a long day.
It just got a little longer, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes Chairman Dollar to your left for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Can you speak a little bit to the HOA portion in Section 3? Because in my district, it's pretty much all homeowners associations, many of which are managed, some are just volunteer. And it's my understanding that they're not currently recognized in the law, and that now this puts an undue burden on those volunteer HOAs. Can you speak to that?
I don't know. I mean, that may be something the lobbyists in the hall might have scattered. It puts an undue burden. But if you're the member, if you're a property owner, then you're the member of that HOA. I guarantee you that HOA can tell you within a skinny heartbeat of how much money you're delinquent on your HOA fees. And most of them, all they do is hit a button on the computer and they run that spit out. So I see nothing in here that's creating any hardship. As a matter of fact, it's raising the $10 cap to $250 cap on all this bundled up services, a lot of them that aren't requested nor needed. So there's no way that this is an infringement on the HOAs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I will be glad, I'd be mighty grateful for the favorable consideration to the members of this House so we can move this bill forward to see if there's any intellect across the hall.
The gentleman has yielded the well, but speakers are lined up to speak on the bill. Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Chairman Willard, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things we don't like doing is meddling with private business and trying to establish fees. But I think it's a duty of us as a legislative body, when there's being abuses done to people that we represent, that we need to make some limitations of what they can do. And this is what is involved with this bill. You have people who are involved with condominiums and even homeowners associations that have a requirement that you have to be a part of that body, of course, to own a piece of property in that development. Many of you have owned condominiums, and many of you are involved with a home that may be in a mandated, what we call a mandated homeowners association. Well, these are fine. They help manage the properties. But when somebody buys and you want to sell, you go to a closing, there's going to be fees involved that cover what are necessary things to complete that closing transaction. If you want to look at the bill, you go to what starts out as a section on page 2 at the bottom, number H, assessment information to be required. And what you have here are things that will be necessary for a buyer and a seller to complete that transaction. Things that are not on public record. Now, your condominium documents may be on public record, but the bylaws, the association rules and regulations, all these things are something that are maintained by the association. It's not just a dollar amount of how much has been paid and what's left owing as far as association dues. One of the other things is you're getting a mortgage with your mortgage company, the insurance that's carrying that property, they need to know and get a certificate about that. So that's part of it. And in the past, it wasn't just getting how much is owed remaining to the association. You have to get now all these other documents. And that's where the abuse has come into play. We had long hearings. I required the parties, ladies and gentlemen, to go out and try to resolve this themselves, and they couldn't or wouldn't do it. So in the final run, it was up to us to come in and make established fees. And as Mr. Powell said, that was set at $250 maximum that they can charge. Doesn't mean they're going to charge that much, hopefully, but that's the limit of how much they can charge to obtain all this information in order to aid the parties to go through a closing. That's simple as that. So we find it necessary to do this. I hope you'll support the bill. It's proper, necessary legislation to protect the public. For that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Teasley to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in very strong, very much strongly in favor of this bill. And the reason why I come to this, I happen to be in my real job, as I call it, I happen to be a real estate agent. And so I have been through this process over and over and over again, where a client finds, you might even call it surprise billing, they find a surprise bill at closing for a fee that they didn't anticipate, they didn't see coming. And in the case of a client, I'm going to read you a little correspondence over an email here. Had a client last year, having seen this fee pop up frequently at a closing, unbeknownst to the buyer or the seller, I had my seller reach out to their HOA management company, and on June 13th of last year, my client sent them an email and said, "Are there any additional fees that I need to be aware of at closing?" On June 14th, her contact at the HOA management company emailed her back and said, "There are no additional fees. All you need to do is to turn in the pool key. Make sure that the buyers get their pool key." Great. So on August the 17th, we're sitting at the closing table and we look at the closing disclosure, and all of a sudden there's a $250 fee for a closing letter. My client then emails the HOA management company and says, "Hey, I'd asked you back in June if there were any additional fees, and you said there were no additional fees." And here was the response that she got. "There are other fees involved, and that is why another department handles the HOA disclosure questions. If you have reached out to the department that handles this, then they would have the correct and most up-to-date information, so there will not be any issues for you at closing." So in other words, despite the fact that my client specifically reached out to her contact at the HOA management company and said, "Are there any additional fees?" the response was, "Sorry, you asked the wrong department." Friends, I think in my time in the legislature, I've demonstrated a commitment to free market principles. And so naturally, there is a question of, are we getting involved in the free market? But I would submit to you, when you are at the closing table and your earnest money, your $2,000 earnest money is on the line, and we're talking about the potential of delaying closing for a week, maybe even canceling the closing altogether, the people at that closing table don't want to risk losing their earnest money. So they have them over the barrel at the closing table. And so if you're waiting till the very end to spring a fee on somebody, I would submit to you that is not a free market situation. And so to Representative Douglas, he had asked a question on the question of who typically pays these fees. These are fees that typically are levied against the seller as they're getting ready to close, or as I've just demonstrated, get there at the closing table. That fee is typically assessed on the seller. And again, the closing letter is basically saying whether or not you owe the HOA you owe the HOA any additional funds. And it seems, as was talked about in committee, it seems kind of odd that you would charge $250, $500 to the seller to then ask to then tell them, oh, by the way, you owe us money. It would seem to me that an HOA management company, if you owe them money, they're probably a little bit more active in having you pay those funds before you get to the closing table. So therefore, it seems that this is a way to generate revenue for HOA management companies. There is a place for HOA management companies. There is a place in the market for them. Many HOAs hire management companies so that they don't have to be the bad guy and say, hey, your grass is too tall, your bushes have gotten out of control. So there is a place for HOA management companies, but they shouldn't be building their business off the backs of unsuspecting clients at the closing table. So with that, I will yield the well and again ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 410. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Welch to speak to the bill.
Very quickly, this is a simple proposition. This deals with a private transaction between two parties on the sale of a property, condominium, or house. With this fee, those individuals are paying it, the buyer or the seller. If we do not have a fee, then that cost is going to be passed along to everybody else in the condominium association and the HOA. So without this, you're actually passing on a tax to everyone else in the community to subsidize the cost of production of documents at a closing table for an individual transaction. And I would urge that you vote for this bill. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 410 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Chairman Dempsey rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask to be excused from this vote pursuant to House Rule 133.
Lady has that right. That's what many of us remember as the Chocus rule. What purpose does Representative Pizzo rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that my wife is a realtor, so by voting against this, I may be spending some nights on the couch and taking some cold showers?
If you
I hope that's not true, but
if you
is that
gain
not true?
admittance to the House, that might be a good result. Have all members voted? Members voting for the bill are voting green. Those opposed are voting red. Have all members now voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 410, the ayes are 153, the nays are 18. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 930. House Bill 930.
House Bill 930 by Representative Tanner, the ninth, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 80 of Title 36, Title 48, and Chapter 32 of Title 50, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to provisions applicable to counties, municipal corporations, and other governmental entities, revenue and taxation, and the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority to amend Chapter 9 of Title 32, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to mass transportation. This bill having referred to the Committee on Transportation. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Kevin Tanner to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate this opportunity. You know, just a few minutes ago when Holly told me I was going to be coming up, I actually started having a nosebleed. I've told people, I said I've bled and sweat for this bill, so I'm excited to present it to you. It's been a lot of work over the past year. First of all, I want to thank the Speaker. His leadership in this area has been extremely valuable, not just in the past 6 months or even the last year, but he's been involved in this for many years. And I appreciate his commitment to getting a commission together that was bipartisan, that had folks from all over the state involved to be able to look at this very serious issue. I also want to thank the commission that this House appointed last year. Whip Christian Coomer, a member of the commission, Chairman Tom Taylor, Chairman Jason Shaw, Dean Calvin Smyrie, and Representative Mary Margaret Oliver were the members from this body that have traveled the state working diligently and spent countless hours on this very issue. We also, I want to thank all the local leaders around the metro Atlanta area. We have met with chairmen of commissions and CEOs and mayors, business owners, and making sure that we were inclusive and listening to everyone's opinion, everyone's concern on this issue. And I appreciate the time that they took. And to be honest with you, I was pleasantly surprised at the true, genuine desire that everyone had to get something positive done for this region. And I appreciate the commitment that our leaders here at the state and in our local communities have for that. We know that Atlanta's congested. This is talking about a quality of life issue. We're talking about economic development. This region, the 13-county region, is adding 100,000 new residents every single year. That is 1 million people every decade. This is truly a regional problem, and we cannot continue to operate in silos. In this 13-county region, we have 11 separate transit operators currently. This is a regional problem, and it deserves a regional solution. The Speaker came to our first commission meeting, and he charged our commission. He charged us to develop a regional governance structure and a funding model. And we have had several committees over the past decade that have taken a look at this issue. The ARC 6 years ago voted to support an initiative like this. The Metro Atlanta mayors, also known as MAMA, passed a resolution this year to support the creation of a regional governance structure and funding model. Today, we're here to move past talking about the problem and actually doing something about it. This bill creates the Regional Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority, or as commonly known as the ATL. It's a new structure for a coordinated and integrated transit plan for the 13-county metro region. The bill establishes a governance and accountability of the ATL, as well as outlining the new and enhanced transit funding, including optional local taxes which counties may apply to raise transit funds. The bill creates a new regional governance structure, taking the place of what has been referred to as GRETA in the 13 counties that encompasses. It intends to improve coordination, integration, and efficiency of transit in the region to promote a seamless and high-quality transit system for Metro Atlanta. Again, it takes the place of the current GRETA structure and encompasses all transit projects and initiatives across the region. The bill empowers the ATL to contract for delivery of transit services, to deliver capital projects, and to ensure a unified brand for transit across the region. The bill intentionally adopts a broader definition of transit encompassing many elements of mobility, including allowing for contracting with ride sharing and other private providers that we know are going to have to be the last mile of service in many of our communities for transit purposes. This bill would establish a new transit governance structure, the ATL. The ATL will be a unifying entity that ensures coordinated planning and funding of transit across Metro Atlanta. It will oversee all transit activity, planning, funding, and operations within the 13-county region. Again, it takes the powers that's currently held by GRETA, with some of the smaller functions of GRETA being transferred to other agencies. The ATL will be required to submit an annual report to both the House and Senate Transportation Committees and to provide relevant local government authorities with that same report. This will be a key mechanism that will increase transparency around regional transit planning, funding, and operations. The ATL will be governed by a 14-member board. 10 of these directors will represent 10 new specially created transit districts in the 13-county region. These districts were developed to distribute the region's population as equally as possible and to match population and traffic movement patterns. Each representative for each district is chosen by a combination of county commission chairs, a caucus of local House and Senate delegations, and one mayor chosen by a caucus of mayors from that region. Any district that lies in part of the city of Atlanta, the mayor of Atlanta will also have a vote along with the other caucus members in that area. The board will be chaired by the governor of our state, and a vice chair will be selected among the members of that board. One member will also be nominated by the speaker and one by the lieutenant governor to serve. That makes up the 13 voting members of the board. The last member will be the commissioner of our GDOT commission, which will be a non-voting ex officio member. The core activity of the ATL will be the development of a regional transit plan. This plan would design the ideal future transit for the Metro Atlanta region, identifying and prioritizing the projects and initiatives required to develop an optimal regional-wide transit plan. The plan would be developed for a 6- and 20-year time horizon and would involve analysis of the region's transit needs and how transit can contribute to a broader economic and social objectives. The plan would be developed in consultation with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, regional stakeholders, local governments, who all can submit information to the ATL for inclusion in the plan. The bill improves access to transit funding for the region from state and local sources. On a state level, the bill would create a statewide ride-hailing fee of 50 cents per completed trip for taxi services and services like Uber and Lyft. The bill also creates a 1% tax on personal and retail goods and services at the airport, and all these proceeds would be used to fund transit within the region it was collected. At the local level, the bill expands transit-specific local sales tax, empowering counties within the ATL to raise additional sales tax of up to 1% for 30 years if they choose. Non-ATL counties also have this ability by partnering with a neighbor county to extend past the normal 5-year time frame. Access to these funding streams will be conditional on allocating this money to projects and priorities within the regional plan. Once collected, these funds can be used for both capital and operational cost of the transit within that individual community. Upon receiving federal designation recipient status, the ATL will also become the recipient of federal funds for this 13-county region. Current providers, particularly MARTA, will have their current operational and funding autonomy preserved. MARTA will continue to have control over its existing revenues and funding sources and will be the sole provider of heavy rail in the metro region. The ATL can, if the board of directors and impacted counties agree, take a more active role in transit operations, including choosing to deliver specific transit services. Again, the key there is the community or the county has to agree to that service. Nothing in this legislation allows for a county to be forced to provide or to take a service they're not interested in having. The ATL will create a unified brand for the Metro Atlanta Transit region that will be in effect by 2023. Again, this also allows for the collection of the 1% tax that we talked about for the 13 counties. However, due to Fulton County's unique situation and the fact that the City of Atlanta is already collecting an additional half penny for transit purposes, Fulton County is treated somewhat differently in this legislation. And this has been worked closely with the Fulton County government and the cities across Fulton County. This legislation would allow the cities outside the city of Atlanta in Fulton County, if they come to an agreement with 70% of the mayors agreeing, then they would be able to ask their citizens to vote for an additional 0.20% tax in Fulton County for transit purposes. We've been working closely with the Georgia Department of Transportation as we look at expanding managed lanes up and down south and north and 400, and also across the 285 area and other places, to be able to look at being able to acquire the additional right-of-way for the purpose of bus rapid transit inline stations in that right-of-way, and then partnering with our local communities to help fund those projects to provide a quicker response to getting transit to the places that it needs to be across our region. Again, that is a synopsis of the bill. I want to again take a moment to thank Speaker Ralston for his leadership on this important issue. I also want to thank again the commission members and stakeholders who've traveled the state with us and all the regional partners. But I also want to stress a couple of things in closing. One, again, nothing in this legislation will require any of your counties or communities to provide any service or to pay for any service they're not interested in providing. If the county commission decides they want to pursue that, then ultimately there will be a vote of your citizens who will have the ultimate voice in the direction your county takes. I also want to mention a couple of our leaders here in Atlanta and some of the things they've said about this process. In meeting with the CEO of DeKalb County, Michael Thurman, he commented that when the Speaker of the House from Blue Ridge, Georgia, stands up at Eggs and Issues at the World Congress Center and says that transit is a priority of this House for this session, he said that is a big deal that I never thought would happen in Georgia. He said, even if I don't at the end of the day agree with every line in the bill, he said, I want to be a part of that because that's transformational and that's a big deal. Charlotte Nash, who is the chairman of the Gwinnett Commission and who also has been a member of our commission traveling the state with us, testified at one of the 3 subcommittees we held after this bill was introduced. And she said that in all of her 40-plus years of working in local government and serving as an elected official, she believed that this legislation would be seen in the future as being just as important and as just as transformational for this region as SPLOSH was when it was created in 1985 and HB 170 and the Transportation Funding Act of 2015. So our leaders recognize at the local level how important this is. We've worked closely with them. They support our efforts, and I appreciate that. Again, I appreciate the Speaker's leadership, and I appreciate all the members of the Commission and the Transportation Committee for the patience that you have shown over the past several weeks. And we've held multiple hearings at the subcommittee level, listened to public testimony, and tried to perfect this legislation. Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll be glad to answer questions, and I would ask that each of you please see how important this legislation is and support an effort that's taken 10 decades to get to the point we are today. Thank you.
You have questions. Do you yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tom Taylor to your right for a question.
Chairman yield.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, my friend. Well, this has been a long, arduous process, but at the end of the day, I applaud your efforts here. The coordination of sort of seamless transportation in transit within the metro area, where half the state's population lives, is critical for economic development. And MARTA being the heavy rail backbone, but putting these things as close as we can under one umbrella is important. And again, just really not a question, but predicated on direct contact to MARTA. 2 years ago, I was proud to announce that we had 8,500 jobs come to my district with State Farm just because of that. And we have people that are not only riders of convenience like myself, because it's convenient for me, but riders of necessity who are in the service industries and things like that need a reliable, consistent form of transportation. Anyway, thank you for doing this. It's a fantastic bill. I urge everybody to vote for it.
Thank you. Yes, 49% of the state's population lives within the 13-county region we're talking about. So it is very much an economic development initiative. Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Cox to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To my friend in the well, just want to thank you for your hard work on this. And just two questions. One, first, just to clarify the process. I think in subcommittee, it was summarized by one of our members that this is a bill that is in large part a giant may rather than a giant shall. Meaning, isn't it true that a Gwinnett County citizen gets to see the plan that this new commission develops, and then we'll have a say in a vote whether or not that they want to approve a tax that would then fund that portion of the plan affecting Gwinnett. Isn't that true?
That is correct. Before any citizen would be asked to vote, all the details would be laid out of exactly what was going to happen, what the plan looked like, and what service they would be paying for. That's correct.
Would you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Regarding the portions that, I guess, if I'm just glancing, beginning on page 44 through 45 or 6, regarding Gwinnett County and its potential relationship with MARTA moving forward, MARTA, isn't it true, retains solely the ability to provide rail as we understand it now. And is there anything in that language, as you understand the MARTA Act, and I don't know if anyone really understands the MARTA Act, but as you understand the MARTA Act, is there anything that would prevent Gwinnett from having such a referendum to contract with MARTA in the primary or general, or could they effectively pick which election and when to have that before or after the plan is approved?
No, that would be driven by current law and when those elections could occur. That's correct.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Jay Powell, to your right.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that there's a tax here on ride-sharing services and taxis and limos?
That's correct.
And isn't it also true that they're already subject to a sales tax, and this will replace the sales tax with a per-ride fee?
That's correct.
And isn't it further true that this will level the playing field between those two competing businesses so that everybody is now paying their fair share instead of one having an uncompetitive advantage over the other?
That's absolutely true. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I want to applaud you and your committee for the work that it's done in both funding and in the governance. I think you've done a great job.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'll take one more.
Chair recognizes the Speaker Pro Tem to your right for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it true that the goal for this legislation for you was to craft a bill that honors the similarities and the differences among the 13 counties that make up the metro Atlanta area, and you sought to develop a framework whereby we could have cost-efficient, coordinated, and effective transportation options?
Yes, ma'am. That's absolutely correct.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll ask for favorable consideration of the House Bill 930. I also want to mention that there is an amendment on your desk approved by the Rules Committee. I've worked closely with Chairman Earhart on that amendment. I would ask that you support that amendment, and I know he will be speaking on that shortly, but I ask you support the amendment and ultimately House Bill 930. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chair recognizes the Dean of this House, Dean Smyrie, to speak to the bill.
Mr. Speaker and ladies of the House, I rise to give my voice to House Bill 930, the Transit Act of 2018. On many occasions, I have stood in this well to talk about issues that affect the people in the state of Georgia. To me, this is one of my highest priorities that I have as a member of this House. Chairman Tanner did an exceptional job explaining the details and the specifics of House Bill 930. In my 44 years of serving in this House, I have never seen a chairman reach out to as many people as he has reached out to, not only in this House, but in all of the political subdivisions that this bill affects. So I want to thank him for that. This is not a finished product. This is a start. And this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to work with the chairman of the Transportation Committee. I've worked with many. But I can truly and honestly say that he did an outstanding job bringing us to this point. And as a member of the Governor's Commission, I'm delighted to have to say that. I learned early in my political career that when opportunity knocks, be ready to open the door, because it may never, ever knock again. This is an opportunity for us in the state of Georgia. We've got to take advantage of it. Listen to me carefully. Transit and transportation won't guarantee economic development. But I can guarantee this to you. Without transit and transportation, you will not have economic development. They are key components to any time we go out into the state of Georgia to recruit businesses. Transit and transportation used to be way down the list. Now, it's in the top 5 of those equal dividers that people are looking for now. Look at the industries that have come to Georgia recently. Transit was on their mind. And so I'm saying to you today that we need to look hard at 9:30 and vote for this piece of legislation. In 2015, Speaker Ralston and I had a candid conversation regarding MARTA and transit. At that time, Keith Parker was the head of MARTA, and Robbie Ash was the chair of the board, and he still is, and I've had a chance to talk with him on many, many occasions about House Bill 930. The two of them and the board brought respectability, sound economic conditions to the operation of MARTA, and with that environment, we were able in 2015 under the Transportation Act to put money in the budget to fund transit across the state. First time, historic. We had never funded transit throughout the state of Georgia. We wanted $100 million. We were able in the budget to get $75 million. We passed the Transportation Act, and during that discussion, one of the items that came out was not only should we pass a Transportation Act of 2015 in House Bill 170, but we ought to continue this discussion on transit. Thusly, the Speaker appointed the Governor's Transit Commission. I had the honor of serving on it, and here we are today. The commitment was kept. Transit is before us. 2 years of hard work has been put into this, and it's something that I strongly, strongly believe in. Over 40 years ago, the General Assembly authorized 5 counties to form the MARTA transit system. Only 2 of the 5 counties plus the city of Atlanta joined the system. At the same time, Washington, D.C. and San Francisco were also building transit systems. Both cities understood a long time ago that the importance of transit investments was also the part of their economic development solutions. We have studied transit in many forms, but falling short to truly address the regional needs of the citizens. This bill gives us the regional structure to undertake what I think is one of the most pressing economic issues facing this region as it relates to congestion and the loss of wages sitting in a car. Today, 9:30 is a real chance at progress. And I want to thank the Speaker for getting us to this point and the members of the Commission. and all those that have served on the Transportation Committee. They do a lot of credit, the members of our Transportation Committee that worked on House Bill 170 and now on House Bill 930. For the first time, everyone is talking about transit and working towards a significant solution. This body during 2015 made a commitment to address transit after we address the roads. Again, I want to thank all of those that were involved. They have worked diligently to fulfill the promise that we made. And I say to you and I ask you, let's not stand in the way of progress. I'm asking you to vote yes on House Bill 930 so that we can help move Georgia forward into the 21st century. Mr. Speaker, with that, if there are no questions, I'd like to yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Coomer, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of House Bill 930, and I want to say right up front a great big thank you to Chairman Tanner for the work that he did. Absolutely went full force after this issue and didn't stop, really has not stopped even today working on this bill. And for those who may not know, this has been a long-term project. Chairman Smyrie referred to the 2015 iteration of transportation funding that we passed. But realistically, this issue is one that has been studied and grappled with and considered and really pushed down the road for decades. And in fact, when we started studying this, we found reports from commissions from the 1980s on how we could fix transit issues in the metro area. And so I think Chairman Tanner certainly is to be commended. You should know this is not a knee-jerk reaction. This is not a bill that just sort of arose out of nowhere. It's been the result of a lot of work, and most recently, of course, the Speaker's Transit Governance and Funding Commission that worked diligently to produce the recommendations to the House, and then followed by the committee's work on the underlying bill. And this really is the ultimate bipartisan issue or nonpartisan issue, because good transportation policy is good for everybody in this state. And it's good for those who haven't yet come, but who are thinking about coming, the people that we want to attract to this state. I'll just tell you this is good policy, and it's good policy if you live in downtown Atlanta or downtown Adairsville or anywhere in between, and I appreciate your support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Gardner to speak to the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I too rise to support House Bill 930 and to thank Chairman Tanner for his patience in working with all of us and working through all the issues. I support this bill as a strong effort to bring transit much closer, to bring the dream that was hatched in this House 40 years ago to have a regional transit system for this area. If our region is to compete in the 21st century, we need a bigger, better, more coordinated system. Building on the 40 years of investment that the people in Fulton County, the city of Atlanta, and DeKalb County have made, this bill is a big step in the right direction. True, there are some things we would like to improve, but I'm proud to vote yes today because I believe House Bill 930 gets us much closer to where we need to be. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to speak to the bill.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise today in support of both the Earhart Amendment and HB 930. Appreciate the detail effort that's gone into this. I do want to say, and I know Chairman Earhart's going to say the same thing, as a representative from Cobb County, Cobb is committed to working seamlessly across this region. Our professional staff and elected officials want to create a system that's seamless to the rider. So people who want to move from Cobb, within Cobb, and even outside of Cobb, the consumer, the rider has a seamless experience. The Earhart Amendment is very important to accomplishing that, because I think as you look at the realities of our needs in Cobb, it's consistent with the town hall meeting I just attended the other night. And in our town hall meeting, people came and said, you know what, Representative Setzler and others, it was actually chaired by some members of this body from the opposite party, they said, we want real practical solutions. People in Cobb County have needs they want to have solved. There's not a sort of an ideological goal. It's one of getting people who need to get to work, who need to live their lives, and depend on transit as a real practical solution to solve those needs. And the Earhart Amendment is going to allow us to do that. As we talk about the specifics of that, I won't go into too much detail, Mr. Speaker, but when you think about what the face of need and even the face of poverty looks like in Cobb County, people in Cobb County who are transit users are not living in concentrated high-density areas that want to ride a single line to a job center. They're living by and large in single-family neighborhoods. Most of them are renting homes that look much like yours and mine, or may live next door to us. And leaving those single-family neighborhoods and moving not to these enormous job centers, but to places all across the metro region, and particularly across Cobb County to work and to live their lives. And with that, Cobb needs the flexibility to put a funding proposal on the table in front of our constituents that would not be just one or two big sort of headlining transit projects, but could fund a network that we're already funding now that needs to grow some, to create interconnectivity across our county in a very practical way, not an ideological or a headlining way. Part of that, Mr. Speaker, also is going to be, I would submit a proposal whether we use the mechanism outlined in 930 or even the mechanism that was outlined back in HB 170, that we could mix in a mixture of transit and road projects that would complement each other in a way that really solves people's needs. That's the spirit I see among Cobb legislators. That's the spirit I see among Cobb elected officials. And that's the spirit I see among leaders in our business community who recognize we have real problems to solve, and teeing something up that might make headlines, that might make people behind the glass in the news media happy, but doesn't solve the real practical needs of people in Cobb County is not what we want. And in the spirit of solving those needs, I support the Earhart Amendment. I would commit it to you. It's something we can pass in Cobb County. We've got the ability to fund transit needs. I'll close by saying this, Mr. Speaker. The current transit system in Cobb County, the money leaving our general fund and to fund our bus system can be funded with 1/10 of a penny sales tax. 1/10 of a penny. We're looking to step up the level of service to our constituents above that, but to do it, we've got to do it in a way that recognizes the fact there are needs across our county that is not just limited to one small district. We don't have needs in Cobb County for transit in one small district. We have needs across our county, but the need is not uniform across our county. There's parts of our county that may want to have one or two stops at key intersections, but have most of their infrastructure spending go to roads. Other needs are very intense in terms of needing transit, and a district by district carve out, as has been discussed, would not solve those needs. So I appreciate Representative Tanner Chairman Tanner more than he knows, and Chairman Earhart for leading this effort, that we do need a Cobb County-wide solution, and the Earhart Amendment will allow us to do that in a way that serves not just our residents, but allows us to work as a great team member across our region. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I urge members' support of the Earhart Amendment and passage of HB 930.
Chair recognizes Chairman Earhart to speak to the bill and his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of House Bill 930. I rise in support of Chairman Tanner, who's worked with me over the last 10 days to work on an issue that was important to members of the constituency that I represent, both Democrat and Republican. And that's what we do down here. We represent our constituencies, and I want to talk about this amendment. Kevin, as Representative Tanner said, we didn't have any opposition in rules to this. An amendment does simply one thing. It does not remove Cobb County from the transit district as dropped from the House Transit bill. I'll get to that in a minute. Those of you in the glass cage back there, we'll have a little conversation about what's true and what's not. But what this does is it says, and I want to make it very clear, that Cobb is a part of the transit discussion and that we want to be a part of the transit discussion. And we'll say it in real small words. Cobb wants to be a part of the transit discussion. Absolutely, unequivocally, that's where we are. This bill will allow that. Cobb becomes a part of the governance of the entire metro ATL region. We want to be a part of that. Our business community wants to be a part of that. Our constituents want to be a part of that for the right reasons. What we did not want to be a part of it, and what this amendment does, is it just says that like every other county in all these 13 county regions, we want to determine for ourselves what the taxing map looked like. No other county is having a taxing map imposed upon it by this General Assembly. All of the removal of all of that language only takes that portion of the Cobb County map that was going to be imposed on Cobb. And let me tell you, you listen to the town hall meetings that Representative Newlowitz had and Representative Wilkerson had. Nobody liked that, and Representative Steele. Nobody liked this map. Nobody liked the imposition of this on their legislators, Republican and Democratic alike. That's all that it does. There was no controversy with Representative Tanner or Chairman Smyrie this morning in rules. But I take massive exception to the headline right here from the jolt that Cobb out of House Transit bill. Read the bill, read the amendment, all right? We're not out of it. And the implication that this is a bunch of knuckle-dragging Neanderthals that don't want to be a part of transit is offensive and not true. Read, we want to be a part of transit. Please try to write that. Ask Cobb legislators if we want to be a part of transit. Ask our business community. You alluded to them. You said, what are the Braves going to say about this? Well, you got to love it. That map, there was a mistake in there. You couldn't even get to the Braves in that map. Maybe they like us making sure that they can be a part of the connectivity. Enough about your agenda that Cobb is an outlier. It's not the case. This is a good piece of legislation moving forward. There's 25 days to continue the discussion in this House as it goes to the Senate and comes back in a conference committee. I'm sure there'll be a lot more good discussion. Let's don't pay attention to headlines that have no relation to reality. Let's vote for good amendments. Let's vote for a good bill that's going to go through the process. I rise in support, and I yield the well, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. For what purpose does Representative Anulowitz rise?
In parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Thank you, Speaker. Isn't it true that there is strong interest and support from many residents in Cobb County to improve and expand transit in Cobb County for reasons that are related to both economic development and regional connectivity for our residents?
I'm sure the lady knows that which she states.
May I ask an additional inquiry?
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that looking at the proposed transit district map that had previously been in the bill, was in the bill, I guess pending passage of this amendment, that the Brave Stadium is actually part of that map?
I have not looked at the map in quite a while, but if the lady says that to be true, I believe her.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 930? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. There is an amendment. It is the Earhart Amendment, AM 390216. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amend the House Committee on Transportation substitute to HB 930, LC 39-1890S, by replacing lines 39 through 44 with the following: transportation service contracts to provide for procedures for Gwinnett County for entering a rapid, by replacing line 1372 with the following: Code Section 32-9-20 or Section 24 of the MARTA Act, by deleting lines 1399 through 1529, by replacing line 1577 with the following: by Code Section 32-9-21 and Sections 25 of the MARTA Act may be, by replacing line 1627 through 1643 with the following: 32-9-21, in the event Gwinnett County and the authority enter into a rapid transit contract which is approved by a majority of voters, a retail sales and use tax shall be authorized to be levied pursuant to the conditions and limitations set forth in Section 25 of the MARTA Act, except as provided to the contrary in subsection B of this code section. Such additional tax shall not be counted towards any local sales tax limitation provided for by Code Section 48-8-6. B1, the retail sales and use tax authorized to be levied pursuant to this code section, by replacing 1651 and 1652 with the following: referendum required by subsection C of Code Section 32-9-20 unless a later effective date shall have been specified in the resolution, by replacing 32-9-23 with 32-9-22 on line 1663, by replacing 32-9-21 with 32-9-20 on lines 1665. This amendment has been printed, distributed, and is on your desks.
Is there any objection to adopting the amendment? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the amendment is adopted. What purpose does Chairman Taylor rise?
Parliamentary question, sir.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this bill is basically a may not shall, and there is no overriding compelling mandate to adopt this by any particular municipality or county?
Well, I think each member can read the bill and make that judgment for themselves. What purpose does Chairman Earhart rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your inquiry.
Isn't it true that, in an abundance of caution, and so that my colleagues in Gwinnett will know, the Scrivener's construction of the amendment mentions Gwinnett County, but only because of the construction. It has nothing to do with Gwinnett, and the languages that were struck are the only portions that apply, and those only apply to Cobb. Is it not true?
If the gentleman so states. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 930 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 930 The ayes are 162. The nays are 13. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Before we break, the chair would like to take a point of personal privilege. There were many members who served on the Transit Governance and Funding Commission, but the members from this House did incredible work, and I want to thank each of them for their service. Chairman Jason Shaw, Majority Whip Representative Chris Coomer, Chairman Tom Taylor, Representative Mary Margaret Oliver, and a great statesman and the Dean of this House, Dean Smyrie. But I have to tell you, I don't know that I've ever seen leadership like that exhibited by the chair, our transportation chair, who worked hard, he worked fair, he worked thorough, Chairman Kevin Tanner. Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is being lunch on the crossover day. The Public Safety Committee, Motor Vehicles and Regulated Industries. The members are invited over to 613 for a pimento cheese sandwich. And even the rest of y'all, if you want nobody to feed the rest of y'all, y'all can come on over there too.
Chair recognizes Chairman Beverly for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Minority Caucus will meet in room 403 immediately upon adjournment for lunch. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Meadows, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, there will be a Rules Committee meeting at 2 o'clock in 341. It begins.
This House will be in recess for lunch until 2:20.